The trailers for Sony's upcoming Ghostbusters reboot have been met with an extremely negative response. The fans, internet, and Twitter sphere all seem to be rallying against the movie, and many are asking themselves why Sony is hitting the reboot switch instead of producing Ghostbusters 3, the sequel everyone always wanted. This video not only details how the movie actually did start out as Ghostbusters 3, the sequel everyone would have preferred, but also how Sony executives effectively froze out director Ivan Reitman and rebooted the property with director Paul Feig and his female-centric Ghostbusters instead. Work on a Ghostbusters 3 dates back as far as 1999, when Dan Aykroyd first wrote the script for Ghostbusters 3 Hellbent, in which a number of new and younger Ghostbusters joined the team. The script went through several rewrites over the next few years, but the project never gained traction within Sony and did not enter formal production. Years later, Harold Ramis would explain that no one, presumably in Sony, was motivated to pursue it. In 2009, Atari released Ghostbusters the video game, which takes place 2 years after the events of Ghostbusters 2 and featured the likeness and voice talents of the original cast. Dan Aykroyd described the game as essentially the third movie that he had originally devised. The game went on to become a huge hit, selling over 1 million copies. This did not go unnoticed by Sony, who now suddenly showed more interest towards actually making Ghostbusters 3 the movie. Sony wanted to revitalize the franchise by having the original Ghostbusters train a dramatically younger crew in Ghostbusters 3, while a correspondingly younger director handled things behind the camera. Vulture reported that Sony brass, meaning Amy Pascal and Michael Linton, wanted Mark Webb, hot off the romantic drama comedy 500 Days of Summer, to direct Ghostbusters 3. However, according to the contracts with the original Ghostbusters director and producer Ivan Reitman from the early 80s, Reitman had a great degree of creative control over future Ghostbusters movies, including director approval, and Reitman wanted to direct Ghostbusters 3 himself. While Reitman couldn't force Sony to make Ghostbusters 3 with him, it would be very difficult for Sony to make the movie with someone else unless Reitman approved or stepped down first. Sony yielded for the time being, and Amy Pascal had Mark Webb direct the Amazing Spider-Man reboot and its sequel instead. But that is a story for another upcoming video. Sony would, however, get a Passing of the Torch movie, which was in line with Reitman's wishes for the franchise. Specifically, they were looking for 3 men and 1 woman, all in their 20s. The script of the movie was further developed over the next couple of years, and in a May 2013 interview with Larry King, Dan Aykroyd revealed the overall story for Ghostbusters 3. Quote, "It's based on new research that's being done in particle physics by the young men and women at Columbia University. The world, or the dimension that we live in, our 4 planes of existence, length, height, width, and time, become threatened by some of the research that's being done. The Ghostbusters would have to come and solve the problem." End quote. He also confirmed at the time Bill Murray was not scheduled to appear, but that the movie would proceed without him. He added that if Murray suddenly walked in the door and wanted to be a part of the movie, which he has a history of doing, they had a place for him. From the outside, it looked as Ghostbusters 3 might soon go into production. Behind the scenes, however, there was turmoil. From the emails leaked in the Sony hack, it is clear that Sony executives, most notably Amy Pascal, did not have faith in Ivan Reitman or his take on Ghostbusters and had issues with some of the proposed cast. At this time, Ghostbusters 3 had the working title Ghostbusters Alive Again, and Reitman was considering Jonah Hill, Zach Galifianakis, Adam Pally, and Jesse Eisenberg among the candidates for the 3 male Ghostbusters, and Brie Larson and Anne Hathaway for the female. For the villain, Reitman wanted Sacha Baron Cohen, as he could pull off both funny and scary. Amy Pascal, however, wanted Will Ferrell instead, despite Reitman maintaining he wouldn't be effective enough as a villain. In an email correspondence between Doug Belgrad and Amy Pascal, Belgrad bemoaned Reitman's references to the earlier movies in the script and expressed an interest in seeing Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen produce the movie along with Reitman, and that it stars Seth Rogen. Amy Pascal, who seemingly neither masters sentence structure, punctuation, or spelling, answered that it doesn't matter who produces if the director is wrong, a clear shot at Ivan Reitman. Development came to a halt when Harold Ramis passed away in February of 2014. We do not know the details of what transpired behind the scenes, but on March 18, 2014, Ivan Reitman told Deadline Hollywood in an exclusive interview that he had a change of heart about directing and stepped back. He would instead produce the movie and help Amy Pascal find a new director. From the Sony hack, we learned that the day before, on March 17th, Doug Belgrad and Charlie Sipkins had prepared the talking points for Reitman, and that these talking points were sent to Amy Pascal for her approval before they were sent to Reitman. From here on out, after Reitman stepped down as director, Amy Pascal and Sony exerted far greater control over the production. The last 3 years have been rough for Sony, with virtually all of their tentpole movies not featuring James Bond or Spider-Man either underperforming or outright bombing. This, of course, gave the two studio head honchos most responsible for the lackluster slate, Michael Linton and Amy Pascal, increased pressure to cut costs and establish bankable franchises, which Sony lacked. James Bond was never really theirs, and their 2012 Spider-Man reboot was the lowest-grossing Spider-Man movie up until then. The pressure was on to make Ghostbusters work not just as a standalone movie, but as a franchise, especially after Sony's plans for a shared Spider-Man universe were cut short after the failure of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. But one of the planned spin-offs in Sony's now defunct Spider-Man shared universe was in some ways a spiritual precursor to the eventual all-female Ghostbusters reboot. Amy Pascal had been passionate about female-centric movies for a long time. In April of 2015, a source close to Pascal and Sony told Mirror that, quote, "For years it has been all about male superheroes, but it's about time that changed. There should be more movies made with girls in mind. This was something that Amy was very adamant about." End quote. One of the spin-off movies planned for Sony's Spider-Man universe was an all-female superhero team with the working title Glass Ceiling. From the leaked emails, it is clear that Pascal was ecstatic about this project. She put together a presentation package of ideas and sent it off to a director she knew shared her sentiment and passion towards female-centric movies, namely Paul Feig. Paul Feig is of course known for Bridesmaids, The Heat, and Spy. In an interview with Variety from April of 2015, Feig revealed that his worldview had been female-centric from an early age, which no doubt influenced his sensibilities in film. He grew up an only child, and with his father often away on business, Feig spent a lot of time with his mother. Most of his friends were either girls or sensitive guys like himself. Other boys bullied him, and he, in his own words, never cared for male bonding. Amy Pascal's passion project, Glass Ceiling, wound up being put on the back burner, but Amy Pascal would call on Feig again for Ghostbusters. Feig was hesitant at first, as he had bad experiences with working under producers with clear ideas of how a movie should be. He wanted to do the movie, but he wanted the autonomy to do it his way, without being subject to the creative restrictions of making a sequel in a pre-established world. Amy Pascal convinced him to sign on by promising he could make the movie he wanted, and that he didn't have to worry about Ivan Reitman. Pascal seemed intent on freezing out original director Ivan Reitman as much as possible at this point. From the leaked emails, we learned that before Paul Feig met with Ivan Reitman, Pascal invited Feig to a dinner party at her house. It wasn't just a dinner party between Pascal and Feig, but everyone else on the guest list was involved with Ghostbusters, except Ivan Reitman, who was neither invited to nor told of the party. Pascal says as much herself in a leaked email, where she stresses the importance of Feig not making reference to the dinner party in an imminent meeting with Reitman, as Reitman was the only one not invited to it. In Pascal's usual style, the email has no punctuation, is filled with misspellings, is written in all caps, and to top it off, she sent it to an unintended receiver. Paul Feig came up with a new story, which we have previously covered. Click on the link for further details. Amy Pascal loved his take and gave him the green light to proceed. In a staged press event on March 2nd, 2016, Paul Feig explained why he decided to reboot. Quote, "I didn't like, personally, the idea of them being handed technology. Here's how to do this. I wanted to see it develop." End quote. Ivan Reitman was seemingly pushed more and more to the wayside, to the point where his producer credit, for all intents and purposes, is marquee only. We do not know the full story, but from the leaked emails, one can easily get the impression that even if he may say otherwise in public, Ivan Reitman is not happy about Ghostbusters being rebooted in private. We will keep you up to date with further developments here at Midnight's Edge. If you like this video, please hit that subscribe button. Join us for spin-free news and analysis of the happenings and corporate politics behind the scenes of your favorite genre movies, as well as explorations of your favorite characters and their backgrounds and context here at Midnight's Edge.